Happy Tuesday. We're going to go ahead and take a look at reading today and what you would need to do for reading and the kind of skills that we're going to use. All right, so today for reading, our learning target is I can refer to details in a text when, it moved away. Sorry, I can refer to details in a text when drawing inferences. Okay, so we're going to start here. Which word below is a synonym for inference? A synonym would be a word that means the same. A, poem. B, clue. C, good guess. Okay, the correct answer would be C, good guess, because an inference is really a good guess about what is happening in a story based on clues and schema. Now, there are 3 things you need to make an inference as a reader. So before you actually get to the inference, you have to do 2 things. What are the 2 things you would need before you made an inference? So the first one would be text clues, and then you combine that with your schema, your background knowledge. So I find text clues. I think about my background with those text clues and what do those things mean to me? What kind of connection do I have with those text clues? That's my schema. And then that helps me create my inference. So in our teacher model today and also in our actual activity that you're doing, your assignment, we're going to be using ReadWorks. And in ReadWorks, you can highlight, you can annotate, it'll even read it to you. So we'll go ahead and take a look at my example here. Now you will sign in with your Google, and your sign in link is going to be a little bit different than mine. So this is called autumn. The morns are meeker than they were. Now, when it says morns, that actually means morning. Meeker means kind of more quiet and not as intense. Okay. So the morns are meeker than they were. Means the mornings are a little bit more quiet than they were during summer. The nuts are getting brown. The berry's cheek is plumper. I notice there's some personification. It talks about the berry's cheek is plumper. That means the berries are getting a little bit bigger. The rose is out of town. It's another example of personification. I know roses don't actually go anywhere, but they're comparing them to a person that leaves town. When it says the rose is out of town, that means the roses are not blooming anymore during the autumn. The maple wears a gayer scarf. Means the maple is a type of tree. So it says a gayer scarf. That means a more pretty, colorful scarf. Okay. So that's what that means. And I think that when they talk about the scarf, they're talking about the leaves because trees don't wear scarves, but their leaves do change colors. The field is a scarlet gown. Well, a gown is like a dress. And I know that a dress covers all of you. The field is a scarlet gown. Scarlet is a very deep, rich red. So I think that means that the colors in the field are changing to like a darker red. Lest I should be old-fashioned, I'll put a trinket on. Now, do you notice here how it's highlighted? A trinket is a small piece of jewelry or other kind of object. Okay? So, lest I should be old-fashioned. So when you talk about I, means the reader, the author, the speaker. Okay? The author is talking about how that autumn is making all of these parts of the earth so beautiful and so interesting to look at. And so this speaker is saying, well, I should put on a trinket or a piece of jewelry or an ornament or a decoration of some kind, or I will be the one out of fashion. So definitely comparing themselves to the autumn. And let's go ahead and look at our question set here. What season does this poem describe? Well, I mean, the title of the poem is Autumn. So that means that that's a right there question. So that's an easy one. That's a right there question. Autumn is B. Okay. What do the first three lines of the poem describe? Let's go back to the first three lines. The morns are meeker than they were. The nuts are getting brown. The berry's cheek is plumper. So this is describing that the mornings are a little bit more quiet. The nuts are changing colors and the berries are getting plumper, which means they're getting bigger. So let's see. What afternoons and evenings are like in the autumns? In the autumn, well, this says the morning, so I know that one's not right. The colors of berries and other fruits. I mean, it does describe the colors of berries. That's a possibility. How people act during autumn. Well, I don't see any mention of people here, so I know that one's not right. And let's see what the ways that certain things in nature have changed. Now that might be a good answer. The mornings are changing, the nuts are changing, the berries changing. I kind of like that answer better than others, so I think I'm going to pick D. Yep, that's the correct answer. And now this is where we really use inference, okay? This is where we're going to have to really think about the clues in the text as well as our own schema to try to make an inference about what the author is trying to explain to us. Read these lines from the poem. Oh, that's awesome. That means I don't actually have to go back to the poem. They're right here. The maple wears a gare scarf, the field a scarlet gown. Based on these lines, what can you conclude about the maple and the field? One thing right here when it says, what can I conclude? Conclude is a way of you drawing an inference. That's another word for drawing an inference. Okay. They just didn't say infer or inference. They said conclude, and it's the same thing. So what can I conclude about the maple and the field? Okay. It's asking me about the maple and the field. Maple wears a gayer scarf. So the maple is starting to look a little bit different and has, like I said, a prettier amount of colors with the leaves. And the field is a scarlet gown, so that means like the field is covered in this beautiful red color. So let's take a look here. A, they're both colored red. Well, this doesn't mention being red. This one does, but that one doesn't. So I don't think that's right. They both look bright and colorful. That could be a good answer because they are talking about being more colorful and more beautiful to look at. People have put clothes on them. Well, this is a poem. This is figurative language. So I don't think that's right because a tree is not going to put on a scarf and somebody's not going to go in a field and put on a red dress. That's not right. D, they look worse in autumn than they did in summer. I definitely don't think that would mean that they looked worse. So these things make it sound like they're dressing up, so they definitely don't look worse. So I think the best answer would be B. They both look bright and colorful. And that's the correct answer. So as you notice, I went back and forth between the text and the questions. Okay. So when I would look at something such as this one, okay, I would read the question. I would think about if it's a right there question or if it's an inference question. I went back to the passage to take a look. I read some more, and then I went back and chose my answer. Okay. So every time you're going to want to make sure you can go back and look at that text to make sure that you understand what the question's actually asking. Okay. And then you would choose your answer based on what you read and what your inference was. So thank you for listening. You did a great job.